Hey everyone, thanks for joining BiblioTech on Air. I'm Rosanna.
I'm Ruby.
And I'm Israel.
And today we are thrilled to be joined by Tim Jacobus, the legendary illustrator behind the unforgettable Goosebumps book covers. Tim is responsible for well over 100 pieces of art, including the iconic 62 original Goosebumps covers, the Goosebumps Series 2000, special edition books, calendars, and other promotional arts.
Yeah, thank you for being here with us. We're super excited.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we actually all grew up. I mean, I'm sure you hear it all the time, reading Goosebumps, seeing your covers, all those illustrations. Kind of funny. I'm 28 now. I didn't start reading them until I was like in high school. Because like at that
Wow.
point, I was like, I think I'm good.
I won't get scared.
I won't get scared. I won't be scared. I mean,
It's the
I was
covers that did it. It's definitely the covers that added that, like, oh man, do I want to read that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. But thank you for being here with us again.
Again, thanks for the invite. Much appreciated.
Yeah, for sure. So let's get right into it. So how did you begin your career as an illustrator, and what led you to your involvement with the Goosebumps?
So, like to draw as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I came from a family that my dad was a World War II veteran, had the same job his whole life. So the idea of doing art for a living, that
Mm-hmm.
wasn't on anybody's radar.
I see.
And nobody in the family had done it. So uh, the more I got involved with it, the less uh, the less they were enthusiastic about it.
Yeah.
And but the more I learned, the more I was like, oh, there is a career here,
Mm-hmm.
because you start out as a kid and you get your art classes in school, and those are all fine art classes,
Mm-hmm.
and they teach you about different mediums, and it's all great, and you learn your basic stuff.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until I was in my last year of high school where I went and took a course on commercial art,
Mm-hmm.
and that kind of changed everything. And I had already signed up and been accepted to a college in New Jersey. My
Mm-hmm.
dad was way big on getting your college degree because he didn't have one.
Gotcha.
And uh, once I had gone to this commercial arts class, I was like, no, I'm not going to college anymore. I'm going to art school. And again, that did not fly. This was not in the cards. So it took a while. What actually happened was the the individual who was my teacher
Mm-hmm.
at the commercial art school. I told him my dad wasn't having any of this stuff, and he said, yeah, give me your dad's number. I'll give him a call." And this man was a veteran of the Korean War, so
Mm-hmm.
two army vets talking to each other. The guy who was my teacher at the vocational art school, the commercial art school, was the most non-art guy you ever met. He looked like he was right out of the service, and crazy
Wow.
back then. You could smoke in school.
Oh.
So, he had the flat top butch haircut. When it was break time, he would tell everybody, "Smoke them if you got them."
Wow.
And yeah, so anyway, he made an impression on my dad. My dad went along with it reluctantly, but yeah, that's how I kind of got started. And when I went to art school,
Mm-hmm.
ignorance played a lot in my choosing to be a book illustrator. There's kind of a path you're supposed to take to go from starting the career to
Mm-hmm.
working your way up to book covers.
Yeah.
And just because there was nobody there to tell me anything different, I was like, well, I'm skipping all those steps.
Mhm.
I'm just gonna go there. So if I had known what buzzsaw I was walking into, I may have chickened out, but didn't know any better, and away I went. So it was a number of years from the time I got out of art school until I got my portfolio together and landed my first paperback cover. So once you get one cover,
Mm-hmm.
you can move around a little bit. That first one
I see.
is the linchpin, because nobody
Gotcha.
wants to take a chance on you.
Mm-hmm.
If you're
Yeah.
not, if you haven't produced anything, everybody's portfolio can be really great,
Mm-hmm.
but and you can, you can tell stories and say, oh yeah, I can do them in a week, and
Mm-hmm.
actually they took, 3 years to produce. And anyway, I did get that first job, and once I had the first job, everybody kind of knows everybody
Mm.
in Manhattan. So let me back up a little bit. I'm talking 100 miles an hour. I'm from New Jersey, by the way. That's what we do. We talk real fast. Um, I live in New Jersey. All the major publishers are in Manhattan, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm about 40 miles outside of Manhattan. So all the book publishers are in a multi-block radius,
Mm-hmm.
and everybody knows everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So when you tell them, oh, I worked for, Donald Walheim, they know who he is.
Yeah.
And if they're reluctant, they could even get on the phone and give the guy a call. Generally, it's they know his reputation and go, well, if Mr. Walheim said you were worth giving a try, all right, come on in, we'll talk to you. I had got a few books on my own, and you can't live off of 2 book covers a year.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't pay the bills. And so I held down a second job and kept at it. And finally I got to the point where I had enough jobs under my belt that I could then approach a rep
Mm-hmm.
and say, okay, let's team up. And that's when things really took off, because I didn't have to keep running in and out of the city. I got a chance to just stay at home.
Mm-hmm.
The rep had all the connections. He'd been in the business for years. He knew everybody. Now he's walking around and
Yeah.
getting me work. And he was able to get in more doors, get more money, and I was home doing what I'm supposed to be
Yeah.
doing, which is painting, and he was doing the running around the city. And so he got me my first job at Scholastic, and I had worked at Scholastic for a couple of years,
Mm-hmm.
just doing one-offs, and I
Yeah.
didn't do any horror. Did some, most of my art was very fantasy oriented, so it was a little weird, and I had done some kids books. So when Goosebumps came along, they knew that I was a responsible
Mm.
individual, and my work was
Mm-hmm.
consistent.
Mm-hmm.
They knew, and I was going, oh, I never did any horror. And not that I didn't think I could do it,
Oh, yeah.
but they were more sure than I was.
Yeah.
And they said, and you're going to work with R.L. Stine. And I didn't know who he was. And I said, well, that's great. Again, no internet back then for me to quick do a
Uh-huh.
Google search and
Yeah.
find out who the guy was. But then through word of mouth, I did find out, he had a very well established track record.
Yeah.
Fear Street was really rolling very well at
Mm-hmm.
that point. And it's like, okay, well, the Goosebumps series was played down at the beginning. Not that anybody was trying to be secretive
Yeah.
about it. They really thought it was going nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So they approached R.L. Stine and me with the same, low expectation. Hey, this isn't really probably going anywhere. Can you help us
Wow.
out? We actually don't even have a full budget for cover art. Take a look at it. If you help us, when this thing dies off, we'll put you onto something else. So the whole beginning of it was, no one cared. And I got a chance to read the first chapter of Welcome to Dead
Mm-hmm.
House, and I went, oh, this is fun. Heck yeah, I'll do this. I don't even care if it's a little less money. Now, again, it wasn't, the thing I learned early in my career was you never turn down a job, no matter what it is. Whether it's a couple of, a few bucks short, it's a job that's on the table. You could go, oh, there might be a better one, and there might not. So just take it. So the less money was not the deterrent.
Nice.
And so I got in. And lastly, they weren't sure if I was going to be the guy to do them. There was another
Oh.
illustrator named Jim Thiessen,
Mm-hmm.
and he was a horror guy, 1000% horror,
Yeah.
very well established. He had been around he was a few years older than me, way more established than I was. And so what they decided was I would do book one, Welcome to Dead House,
Mm-hmm.
and he would do book two, Stay Out of the Basement.
Mm-hmm.
And then they said, we're going to just roll them all the way through, roll them to press, and then we're going to look at them when they're done and then decide who will do the rest of them. Now, the rest of them only meant either 2 or 4 more books.
Yeah.
It wasn't like
See.
there's hundreds of them.
Uh-huh.
It was, so it wasn't it wasn't this giant drama
Yeah,
thing. It was
yeah.
like, okay, yeah, pick them and see how it goes.
Mm-hmm.
So the major concern was the books being too scary.
Mm.
And when they saw the two covers side by side, my art is a little bit more, for a lack of better term, it's a little more cartoonish.
Mm-hmm.
And I was using that rich color palette.
Yeah.
And they were going, okay, yeah, this is less scary. This is our major concern.
Yeah.
So that's why they chose, my art over Jim's art.
Yeah.
And and that's the start of
The inception. Yeah.
the story that keeps on giving. Here we
Yeah,
are
Yeah.
Definitely.
in October
Definitely.
22nd, 2024, and we're still talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah.
amazing.
So speaking of I can't imagine them comparing two different covers and then going with yours eventually. So they have such a distinct, unforgettable style. Like, what inspired you to create this iconic look that resonates with this series?
So when it started, the style was loosely there, but I hadn't hammered it out yet. And the fact that we were doing one book a month,
Mm.
and the format was the way it was set up. So now I'm doing the same thing over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
So the style then began to be a style. It began to fall into place, and then I would do things and go, "Ooh, I like that." Put that in the back of your mind. We'll try to do that again. Um, so first off, we just talked about it was the colors.
Yeah.
Okay, we got the color palette. They said that's what they like, so make sure you lean into that, and we'll do more of that. Then I started doing that warped perspective thing that you see on Monster Blood 2, and the hamsters there, but you look at the ceiling, and the ceiling tiles are all bent. And Egg Monsters from Mars, the kitchen's all bent.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
okay, ooh, that's cool. I like that. So that becomes a thing. Then anytime you see a kid's feet, he's always wearing Converse, high top,
Yep.
all-star red sneakers. Okay, again, so you start to do more and more things that you call a style, but it really was repetition. It was the main thing that and the style, the designers of the books were really, they were rolling along with me as well. Most book covers kind of maintain the same overall book design, frame, and color. Where when Goosebumps was coming out, they were lifting colors out of my painting and changing the book colors, book cover colors. The logo would change colors, the little drippy frame that was on there. So now the books they're one-offs. They're they become art of their own.
Mm-hmm.
So that really helped a lot. Third thing that helped a lot was Goosebumps wasn't about one thing. Every book was a new monster, new kids, new location. Everything was new and fresh. So you never knew what to expect. You couldn't anticipate I couldn't. And, I was as close to it as could be. I was excited as everybody else going, all right, what's the monster of the month?
Mm-hmm.
And so those things in combination really helped to design, to help develop a style.
Yeah.
And does something like that like help keep it fresh when you're doing a monster of the month instead of, having it be continuous to where it
Oh
could
heck
possibly
yeah.
like get
I
stagnant?
can't. Yeah, if we did 100 books and they were all about Harry Potter, I think we all would want to hang ourselves at the end. So not that I'm against Harry Potter or anything.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
all it's very cool. It's very good.
Mm-hmm.
But the sameness of any theme at some point it gets harder and harder to draw the cool part
Mm-hmm.
out of it. Yeah,
Yeah.
the idea that it was fresh and new every time, amazing. Yeah, and then going back and revisiting, doing
Yeah.
three Nights of the Living Dummy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sure, yeah, that's not a problem because there was a bunch of books spaced in between, and there was nothing but great ideas to pull out of all of this stuff. Other thing that was to our advantage was, okay, this was a Scholastic product. Now,
Mm-hmm.
Scholastic Books started out as an academic book company, and they made the math and geography and history books and all that stuff, and then they developed the pipeline
Mm-hmm.
into schools. So then when they branched out into, broader types of books, we were bringing it straight into the schools.
Yeah.
You didn't have to go through the bookstore
Yeah.
before it got to the
Yeah.
schools. And now we're doing something wild.
Mhm.
There's monsters coming into
Mhm.
your library, but there weren't any other monsters in the library. We were the only
Yeah.
monsters. So again, a lot easier to get your attention in a library that's just full of academic
Mm-hmm.
books. And then over in the
True.
corner, there's these wildly colored, books with embossed covers on them that
Mm-hmm.
you could touch the goosebumps on them.
Yeah. That.
And,
Yes.
and they were coming out fast. So it wasn't like you got used to it quick. As fast as you got used to one, boom, there's another one
Mhm.
coming out.
Yeah.
I
And
So,
genuinely
uh,
remember that.
Yeah.
yeah, I love that because like my brain was always ready for the next thing. I didn't start reading them until I was in high school, but the illustrations, the stories that my friends would talk about, they were there.
Yeah.
They were there. You know.
and if you
Um.
started a little bit later, there was already a stockpile. There
Exactly.
was already 40 of them there,
Mhm.
and you're like, oh, I got a lot
Yeah.
I got
Catch
a
up.
lot to weed
Yeah.
through. And then there's still new ones coming in while there's
Mm-hmm.
still 40 in the back on the back burner.
Yeah. And so did you experience any challenges going from like the designing the original 62 to the Goosebumps 2000 series?
No, that was actually the timing on that was good for me
Mm-hmm.
because we had done 8 years worth of books, and you're going, okay, I could have kept doing it forever. But
Uh-huh.
then when they said, all right, we're going to change it up a little bit, we're going to change the format, we're going to change the design, and we're going to let you do a little more, put a
Mm-hmm.
little more edge onto these
Gotcha.
ideas, and you can do stuff that's a little more scary.
Mhm.
I was ready for a change.
Mhm.
Good.
So it
Ah,
was
good,
really
good, good.
welcomed. I was thrilled that we were going to just mix it up a little bit more.
Yeah, and I like that they did have a different edge to them. They
Mhm.
really did. It brought a different type of story. It was just different entirely. And so how closely did you work with R.L. Stein? Did y'all sit down like this is the story? How did y'all collaborate?
So the what would seem normal
Mm-hmm.
is not what we did. So
Mm.
you would think, at least we would be on the phone with each other
Uh-huh.
when the book was ready to go out and go, hey, okay, here's what
Uh-huh.
we're going to do. Here, let me give you my thoughts.
Mhm.
None of that. So illustrators work with art directors, authors work with editors and art directors talk. So
Gotcha.
RL was writing the book at exactly the same time I'm doing a cover.
Mhm.
So there is no
Interesting.
book. And all he would
Yeah.
do is give me the title and a couple of sentences.
Wow.
And then he would take off. I would get it through the fax machine, through the fax
Mm-hmm.
machine. And so I would see what I was up against. And then the art director I worked with, it was the same woman, and we would just talk briefly.
Mm-hmm.
If she had an idea, certainly let me know. We were kind of on the same wavelength. And again, when we first started, no one thought it was going to be a big success. So there wasn't like this big committee of people, and it wasn't on anybody's radar. It wasn't super important. Not that it wasn't important, but it was just nobody. We got left alone.
Yeah.
So I made sure that I tried to do three concepts for every cover. So just in case, we only got a couple sentences, I might be, I may be too far left, too far right with my ideas. So there was something there was going to be something we're going to land on.
Yeah.
The fact that we're doing it every month cuts down on the time people can, contemplate and, and wait too long to make decisions.
Yeah.
So it was really, hey, here's 3 sketches. We like number 2. Okay, just finish it. Then I get it done and I go, hey, here it is. They go, great. Here's the next one. Hurry up, get started. We need to. So
pretty fast paced.
RL and I were doing covers for almost 2 years. We were 24 books in. I don't know the exact number, but it was that far into it before we were at the same event together where I got a chance to walk up to him and shake his hand.
Wow.
Dang.
Yeah, so we were separated for a long time, but then after that initial meeting, we then got together more. We didn't communicate more during the book developed, like this. The way we did it stayed the same way, but we started to talk to each other more socially.
Nice.
And got a chance to go to dinner, got a chance to visit his home. They had a Goosebumps it wasn't a ride, but they had a Goosebumps thing in Disney World in the late 90s called Horrorland, and they had RL there and made him ride in the car in the parade. And he brought us with him on that trip. So we got closer, and then once social media came around, now him and I just can text each other regularly. And again, it's never about work. It's never about anything, work related, other than, how things are going good.
Yeah.
And then we always, 99% of the time, it's, did you see this Goosebumps tattoo? And we send pictures to one another.
Nice.
That's awesome.
I love that.
Obviously, Goosebumps artwork has had one of the biggest influences on pop culture. I wonder, so how does it feel just knowing that your work has left such a lasting impression on so many generations, especially the way you started out? You thought this was nothing.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, well, and I know it's really hard to appreciate, but even in its heyday, I knew, of course, it was successful and it was cool, but there's no internet, there's no social media, so you don't get that big blowback that if we're doing it now, it would be, it might be overwhelming. But I knew kids liked them because you would see kids walking around with them, and I would go do presentations at schools, and it was great. And it kind of ran its course. And then, so I think I did my last cover in maybe 2003. Can't hold me to that, but somewhere around that point. And at that point, Goosebumps took a break. It took a couple of years off before it kind of kicked back up again. And so to me, it was over. And at my house, we weren't talking about it anymore. And I moved on to other projects. And, my son was born, and I just became Jack's dad. And then when Goosebumps started up, they picked up a new illustrator to do the new covers. Not that they didn't like me anymore. It's just that, when you want to put a fresh spin on it.
Right.
Nancy Drew books keep coming out.
Yeah.
They don't use somebody who's 300 years old, and they got new people all the time. So at that point, I was, I thought it was over. We're done with this, and I had my run, and it was very cool and all that. And maybe 10 years ago, like the first cracks start where I start getting those random emails. Hi, I'm, now a grown up and I read Goosebumps when I was a kid. And, I thought it was an anomaly at first. And the fact that, you know, I'm at cons now
Yeah.
and people have tons of nice things to say. And Goosebumps shirts are still readily available and nobody's wearing them ironically. They're wearing them because they still think it's cool. And now the new shows, the Jack Black movies, then the new shows on Disney Plus.
Yeah.
It's it's all totally, totally unbelievable. It makes no sense whatsoever. And if you told me that this was going to happen, all these years ago, I would have laughed in your face. So the idea, just that the fact that we're even just talking about it and people know what it is
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Last thing I'll say about it is the first go around when I was, you guys were reading and I was talking to you, you were only 10 years old and we couldn't really talk to each other. You would tell me I like Slappy,
Yeah.
and that would be the extent of our conversation. But now, from a memory and a grown-up perspective, it's really, really nice. It's heartwarming. It's very cool to have people come up, at a con and tell me, everybody's got a pretty good story. I've heard some really great ones, and no, I love every minute of it, and it's hard to. Uh, what's great is, so I just did the New York Comic Con this past week.
Nice.
So lots of people, hundreds of thousands of people, talk to people all weekend. They say really nice things to me. It's just lovely. And then I come home and I live here with my son and he is totally unimpressed with me. And you need that balance in your life. So it's very nice to come home and just hear, hey, we're out of milk. So
he humbles you.
He keeps you grounded. He keeps you
grounded.
grounded, Yeah. And on the topic of the covers, is there a favorite that you have in the original 62 and then maybe even the 2000 series?
So and it changes. I get asked way less about the 2000 series, and there's a lot of them in there that I like. In the original series, like I said, it changes often, but I'm a fan of the ones that when I first read the couple of sentences, I had to take a pause because when you say Scarecrow walks at midnight, we all got an image in our head right now. As soon as you hear those words, you know what it's kind of going to be. Cornfields, it's dark out, and we all have a vision in our head of what a scarecrow can be. Maybe mine's a little different, but we know what that is. But when I open it up and I hear we're doing egg monsters from Mars, then I got to go, oh, I don't know what an egg monster from Mars is. And now I got to concoct something that nobody can tell me I'm wrong because you never heard that before. And those were the ones that were fun. Egg monsters from Mars, the blob that ate everyone. It came from beneath the sink. A killer sponge. Come on. These are great concepts, and those were the ones that were really fun to do. In the 2000 series, I like the one I liked a lot was I spent a lot of time working on the perspective and getting it to be something a little bit different, and that was Jekyll and Heidi. So you'll have to look that one up. Yeah, I just like the way it came.
And for like you obviously we talked about the ginormous impact that your covers have had over generations, and now what's some advice that you would give to those kids that grew up reading your books that are now looking to become maybe their own developing their own art style or looking to become cover artists just like you?
So when like I told you, I chose the school of hard knocks way of getting into the business. So along the way I was like, all right, this is this is important knowledge. Nobody needs to, make the same errors that I made. So I had this whole thing laid out that I was going to be able to tell everybody, hey, don't do that. Go over here. The path is way clearer here. Over here, you need a machete to get through that. And what's so funny is every single thing that we did back in the late 80s and the 90s to get work no longer applies.
Mm-hmm.
There again, we walked around with physical art in a case and knocked on doors, and that's how you showed your work. I can't tell anybody to go do that anymore. That's just not the way it works. And the way you promoted yourself, and every single thing no longer applies. All this knowledge that I could help you with, yeah, the whole world changed. My knowledge was okay. It's just the rest of the world took a spin here.
Mm-hmm.
The one piece of advice I like to give, and this was something that I learned much later in what I was doing, is art, illustration, music. I'm sure it happens in acting some, probably maybe a little less than that, but mostly art and music. The idea that you need to be inspired to do what you do. And I don't know where that came from. And we all know what it's like to get a good idea. That's cool. There is some sort of wild thing that happens every once in a while where you're just walking down the street and something pops in your head and you go, I don't know where that came from, but I'm glad it's here. But that shouldn't be, you're not allowed to wait for that. That's my advice. You gotta look at what you're doing like you're training to be an athlete. You gotta get up every morning and you gotta go to the gym. You gotta do your sit-ups, you gotta do your push-ups. So your art, you should work on it in that fashion. You should do it every day. Doesn't have to be for hours and hours, but you should carve out time because this is very important to you. So make the time to do it and learn to do it when you don't feel like it. Because the days that you get through it and you do something, it doesn't mean that every day you're going to do something good, but you got into the habit of just doing it. And on those days where, listen, there's days where I can't even imagine. It's like, do you even know how to do this? After 40 years, you still have those days where you go, boy, you stink today. But keep on going and, you'll get something that's semi-usable. But then you get out the other side of that and then you get those magical days where you go, oh, everything you touch is working. So again, learn to do it when you're not thrilled about it. Learn to do it as an everyday event. And the other point to that is muscle memory. So if you only did your art or your music one day a month, but you did it, for 10 hours, as compared to doing it for 20 minutes every day for that whole month, you're going to be much better come the end of that month, just because of the everyday thing and the muscle memory and the mind being just engaged just for a little bit every day. Your improvements are going to be way better than they would be if you just, did a block of time at the end of the month.
Yeah, sound advice. It can be applied to a lot of things.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's just it. I mean, obviously, I learned it, the same way, and so of course I learned it from trying to keep yourself in physical shape. We all, you got to do something, and the thing that I do to myself to get myself to go to the gym, I still do those same stupid mental tricks like, I don't want to go to the gym today. And then the little voice in my head says, well, just put your shorts on and put your sneakers on, put the t-shirt on. That just do that, and you'll be a little closer. And then
Yeah.
okay, yeah, and then it's like, okay, well, just go ahead, go to the gym. You don't have to work as hard as you usually do. Just make sure you go and do something. Yeah, okay. And I do the same thing with my art stuff. It's a little easier with the art stuff because I have stuff here that needs to be done,
Mm-hmm.
but it's always, let's go, just sit down, let's go. I know you don't feel like it. And, you know, and the same thoughts, just do what you can. It doesn't have to be a 14-hour day. Just,
Mm-hmm.
get in there, and then you sit down and you start doing it, and then you gain some momentum.
Yeah.
And on a lot of days where when you first sit down, you don't feel like it, you you really can get things rolling. Like
Mm-hmm.
there will be momentum that builds out of it. And I've had days where I wake up going, "Oh, this is going to be a great day," and I sit down, and everything I touch is terrible. And I go, "All right, well, that's the way that today's going to go."
Are there any projects that you're currently working on that you can share with us, or anything that's coming up that you're
I
excited
have
about?
a cool one that I'm working on, and I can't tell you anything about it.
Ooh, very
So
good.
Top
yeah,
I
secret.
like
Huh.
oh,
that.
and yeah,
Exciting.
yeah. Well, it's not. It yeah. It's an interesting one. It's a fun one. And I just started. I have some rough sketches for it.
Mm-hmm.
I got to tighten it up, and then yeah, it will. When it comes out, you'll
We'll
hear
see.
about it.
Yeah.
And it's different. It's not. I will go as far as saying it's not book oriented.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's a little different. It's a different avenue, and
Nice.
yeah. So for me, super fun, and yeah, I'm excited about it. I just finished some again, another diversion from what I normally do. I got hired by Wizards of the Coast, and those are the people who do
Oh.
Magic the Gathering.
Oh,
Yeah.
And
yes.
yeah, so there's a new series out
Yes.
that just got released a couple days ago called Duskmorn, and
Ooh.
it's all horror. It's a whole horror based card series.
Oh,
So
we're gonna have to check
So
that
cool.
out. Yeah.
yeah, so they let me do a couple of cards. I did three of them, and again, whole new world.
Yeah.
Now, they give me these cards and I don't know anything about it. So I actually went to my local comic book store and sat down with a guy and said, "All right, listen, I'm going to pay you for your time. You got to tell me what this is. Teach, give me, so I can at least converse with people when they start coming up and asking me
Yeah.
questions." So 2 hours later, I realized this is not something that you can learn. The depth of this game is wild,
Yeah.
and but
Definitely.
I got enough to where I can, I can talk a little smack, and so yeah, so that's been a real fun uh, diversion, and
Nice.
and what's interesting is that there's way more crossover than I thought would be there. There's a lot of Goosebumps fans that are Magic fans.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
You're looking at some.
Yeah, we're
oh, there you
testing
go.
that. Yeah,
Okay,
we
yeah,
actually knew. Yeah,
Yeah.
so we're glad you
that's
brought that
cool.
up.
Yeah, again, it's so funny. I mean, it's not that I never heard of it, and there were times where people said, "Oh, you should reach out to them and get
Mm-hmm.
involved," but I only heard about it years ago, and basically what they wanted was an artist that was going to do all or most of the cards, and I was go, I don't
Yeah,
have that kind of
that's a lot of
time
yeah.
commitment to
Mm-hmm.
jump into something that may take years to
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
complete.
Mm-hmm.
And now that they've gotten to now it's all evolved enough where they go, well, basically the way they handed it to me was, how many can you do?
Mm-hmm.
And I was
Nice.
like, well, how many do we went back and forth. How many do you want me to do? How about this? And I was like, I want to make sure I get them done and they're good. So, we landed on three. And again, I didn't know
Yeah.
what the people were like to work with. And they're, they're people who are used to dealing with artists, and the
Mm-hmm.
whole way that the project was structured was so well thought out,
Mm-hmm.
where a lot of times you work with people and it's just wild.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
random, it's wild, and there's no randomness. The structure is in place, and they're very interested in what you're bringing to the
Mm-hmm.
table and your ideas. And yeah, if down the road something else pops up, I will 100% jump back in and do more.
Hopefully,
So,
yeah,
but
that's
yeah,
awesome.
now, but I'm still living. These are all brand new, so I'm living
Yeah.
off of these now
Mm-hmm.
for a little
Mm-hmm.
bit.
Nice.
Well, since we are a library,
Mm-hmm.
we do have to ask you, what are you currently reading or what have you recently finished?
Um, I'm listening to uh that guy Alessandro. Um, what's his last name? He's the UFO guy from the U.S. military
Mm-hmm.
who was part of the government, and he's got UFO stories. And again, I'm interested in the subject. I don't know what I believe and what I don't believe.
Mm-hmm.
Louis Alessandro, and uh, so it's very interesting. But the one that I like and again, I'm listening to books mostly
Mm-hmm.
just because what I do, I need to be looking at my paper,
Mm-hmm.
what's
Mm-hmm.
on my desk, but it's nice to have someone telling me a story. I read this other book called Fluke,
Mm.
and the book of the way it's presented is this guy talks about all these events in history and how we think things happened because historical events. Why did Hiroshima and Nagasaki get
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
bombed?
Mm-hmm.
And the story behind it is so not what you knew, and these small little events that changed history.
Mm-hmm.
It's the kind of stuff that makes you go, well, then nothing matters.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
all my efforts in trying to get something done is, well, if you didn't get on that bus, none
Mm-hmm.
of this would have happened.
Mm-hmm.
And very fascinating, and just an interesting way to look at history.
Mm-hmm.
Love it. Great stuff.
Yeah,
Sounds
definitely.
very good. I'm
Yeah,
gonna check
sounds
that out.
fluke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Very good.
yeah, yeah. And it's one of those ones where the first story you just go, oh, you do a oh wow on the first story, and you go, okay, I'm in. Here we go.
Gotcha. Kind of like Goosebumps. Oh, gotcha. I'm in. Alrighty. Well, that's all the questions we had for you. Thank you again for taking the time out of your day. We greatly, greatly appreciate it, and we know that all of our patrons and our listeners will appreciate it as well. Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
Awesome.
Is there anywhere that if people they want to look you up, can they find you?
Yeah, that it's an easy find on Instagram. That's mostly where I'm actively posting, and I'll put up all my newest art there first. And it's just Tim Jacobus on Instagram. If you're interested in buying prints,
Mm-hmm.
it's jacobusstudios.com. And if you do buy a Goosebumps print through this site, we take $10 from every print that we sell. And my son and I go buy food and load up the pickup truck and take it down the street
Amazing.
to the food bank. So
That is
100%
amazing.
of your $10 goes to actually buying the food. And we started this thing during the pandemic, and
Yeah.
I just figured we would be bringing a couple bags now and then. And we've been able to fill up the pickup truck every month due to
Nice.
the generosity of all the Goosebumps fans who keep on buying them.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I'm the guy who, this still surprises me every day. I would have thought by now we did 50. It's our 50th month. It's the 50th
Wow.
time I filled the truck. Every
Wow.
month I go, well, that's got to be it. Nobody's going to buy anymore. I sold them all to everybody who wants one, and every month we sell a few more. So yeah, it's very cool, and I appreciate everybody who does do that and makes purchases.
Gosh, that's incredible.
Yeah. I
Nice.
think you're gonna have 3 more people buying. So,
Yeah,
you know,
definitely.
Yeah.
But again, thank you so much for your time, Tim. we know you've been super busy lately, so it really does mean a lot to us and to our listeners that, you know, we can have you on our podcast.
Yeah, and your fans don't know how flexible you had to be, because I was in, I was out, I was in, I was out. Now I'm in. So
Yeah.
yeah, no, I appreciate your guys' flexibility as well.
Of course,
And
of course.
you know, I people now, the new question is, don't you ever get tired of this? And absolutely 100% I do not. This it's always fun to talk to people who are excited about what you do. And I'm sure there will be a day sometime where it dies back down again. But right now, it's very, very nice that people are interested in my art, past and present.
Most definitely.